Okay, so lesson 6 and friends. And I had to start with this particular quote because when you look at the idea of friendship and what it involves, it all revolves around the idea which our Savior gave. This quote from John 15:13, that greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down friends. Talk about friendship, concept of why would somebody do that? Why would somebody give the ultimate sacrifice on this earth to end their time on this earth, the only time that they have in all of eternity that they've been given by God as a great gift, that they would choose to lay that down for a friend? It brings us to the idea of value. And when we think about friendship and that concept with the Bible, value is the thing that we need to keep in the foremost of our minds. And the reason is because many times those things which become common to us tend to lose their value. And this idea of friendship and friends is something that the Bible puts a great deal of emphasis on. Jesus puts the ultimate emphasis on in the development of a relationship. And I remember this. My mom used to sing this to me all the time as I was growing up. Make new friends, but keep the one is silver and the other gold. And hopefully, as we go through this study this morning, it'll help us to understand a little more about what that cute little song is all about. So let's look at the lesson outline. Follows the outline more or less in your lesson book. So if you did a good job on your lesson, you should have a lot of fun here this morning. And as we go through, we're going to be talking about the advantage of having friends, what friends will do for you, how to get friends, things that destroy friendship. Then we're going to look at a special relationship and friendship that Jonathan and David had. And then finally, just a couple of general questions about friendship if we have some time at the end. So let's take a look at the advantage of having friends, first of all. One of the things that is talked about in the book as the advantage of having friends is that they will love you at all times. And we have this quote from the Proverbs 17:17. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. So the question is, when might a friend love you, but others or everybody else does not? And give an example of this, right? Something that you've come across maybe in your life. What makes the idea of a friend make this possible? Ken?
I guess a friend a lot of times doesn't know all your faults. And, they don't know you, as much as a relative or a wife or a husband might know you. And so they're willing to overlook those, what faults you might have and love you anyway.
That's interesting because the way you approach that particular thing and seeing examples that I could think of in my own life, it was just the opposite. Same reason, but just the opposite as far as the friend knew me better than my relatives did. And so my relatives were kind of walking around in a fog, and so it happens, it occurs in both situations. What's the similarity between the two? Shirley, give me your answer first on what.
I think you might tell your friends. Let them tell your family.
It seems that way to teenagers, doesn't it? Yeah. Parents, yeah. Yeah. Well, what is it? And those of you that have adopted children, okay, and some that are getting ready to enjoy that beautiful that beautiful thing. What is different about adoption versus natural birth? You get to choose. Yeah, interesting that in the Bible there are two different things that are looked at. There are those that were naturally born, the Jews. It was based on race, your bloodline. That was the natural, and then there was the adopted children. You and me, Christians, everybody that became Christians later on, and which had the greater emphasis in as far as God was concerned.
It makes a difference though, where if you get that child when it's born, and when you get the child when it's older.
There is a difference, right? What's gone by? What's the difference there as far as?
You're there to teach it.
Okay, so time with you, parents, yeah, all of that. So you can see there's some things in there a little bit deeper than the way we think about it. There are reasons why God has created and designed organizations like the family and structures and things like that, and we can just look at the Bible patterns in there and help to understand, and maybe that will help us as adoptive parents to raise our children with maybe a little different perspective. Maybe those that haven't adopted, maybe it makes us look at our natural children maybe in a little bit different way. So yeah, these are some examples of why a friend's love can be different for very specific reasons than a love from a family. So then we have the second advantage of having friends is that they stick closer than a brother, and we have Proverbs 18:24, a man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Why is a friend sometimes closer than a brother? Now, this is the follow-on what we were just talking about. A brother, the term brother is used in the Bible to represent what? What kind of a relationship? A couple of levels here. Jesse, you got a smile on your face. What kind of a relationship does the term brother in the Bible represent? How's it used?
It's used in the fleshly sense. Paul would pray for his Israel, his brethren of the flesh, and then there's obviously the familial sense, family of a brother. But
what sense though does the term brother bring to you? If you say, "He's my brother." Come on, you guys, wake up. Closeness, yes. You don't call somebody a brother when there's not an attachment there, right? And it could be physical. Not all brothers get along, physical brothers. But you choose to have somebody as a brother, and you call them a brother, and you treat them as a brother in the biblical sense. You're intimating a closeness there, exactly. So why is a friend, though, sometimes closer than a brother even? Robert?
My best friend and I have been friends for nearly 20 years. I don't have a physical brother, but Philip and I chose each other, and we have gone through everything together for nearly 20 years. We chose each other.
Okay.
We chose to show each other our faults and where we fail. And even going back to your last question, they might stand by us or they're closer because we chose them and they chose to know our fault and still love us and care for us.
Okay. If what Robert was saying was biblical verses right now, there was a certain word he used in there many times, and we know that if the Bible says a particular thing many times, what kind of emphasis is God trying to get through our thick skulls? Is it important or not important? It's important. Okay, so he used the word what? To choose. Whoa. Okay, so a decision. your decision, a choice, the choice of you and the person that you're having in this relationship, this friendship with. It's a choice. It's not something you were born into. So, so that can be that can make you closer than the thing which maybe you become a little apathetic about, which is, he was born. I didn't choose him. That's my brother. That's my sister. Whatever. And after a while, sometimes we don't treat them as good as we should. Okay, so another advantage of having friends is they rejoice the heart. I thought that was an interesting term. The New King James talks about the delight by hearty counsel. Sweetness of a man's friend gives delight by hearty counsel. That was kind of picturesque, but they rejoice the heart. So how does this happen? What's the process that's going on here? They rejoice the heart. What are you talking about? Ken?
They understand you usually. You have an emotional connection.
Okay.
And when you're down, they can tell that you're down and they help lift you up. Type thing.
Well, and notice that it's the term rejoice. It's not the term happy. It's the term rejoice, tied to the idea of joy, which is something that is not surface, but deep inside. So now we're talking about the depth of a relationship. You start talking about rejoicing, you make me rejoice. Those kinds of terms are talking about something that gets to your soul, gets to your character, that affects you deeply inside. And this is one of the advantages of a friend. Having that kind of a relationship, it makes a difference in your life. And people that don't have that kind of a relationship have a very shallow kind of life, a surface kind of life that, lives off the happiness of the moment and those kinds of things. And they miss a lot, right?
When I was attending here in church, there was a young fellow that was just a year or so old, younger than me. And we just flocked together. And we went everywhere together. And he had a motorcycle that had a seat in it. Mm-hmm. And we went everywhere in that.
You were in the sidecar?
Right.
I would have loved to see that. With the goggles and the...
We stuck together for the longest.
Stuck
He was
together.
there.
Yeah.
Go.
Visiting?
He came to church.
Think of the memories that I could see from the smile on your face, that the joy that came in that memory right there. Go ahead, Erica.
So last Sunday you had mentioned we're talking friends of brethren, making friends of brethren, and you made the comment about sometimes when someone's going through a hardship, we think it's appropriate to kind of step back more often than lend a hand. And I was just looking at Brandon's version. He has the ESV version, and I have the New American Standard. But I like his.
What does it say?
His version says that it says the sweetness of a friend comes from earnest counsel. And I like that, and it made me think of your comment, because a lot of times you see that too, and I've experienced that when you're going through a hard time and you need someone. More often than not, it's your close friend that's coming swiftly to your aid, to provide that counsel. So,
and it's during those times that you discover some things about people in your life and those relationships. Very important. Francis?
Giving information to anybody that you don't truly trust, and a friend is someone you can trust.
Yeah, nice. Okay, another advantage of having friends, that they support you in times of trouble, and here we go, right here we were talking about. And we have the example from Ecclesiastes, verses 9 through 12, and you can see it there. this idea of bonding together, and the threefold cord is not quickly broken. Threefold cord, you think of a rope with 3 strands, or a wire with multiple strands, and the strength associated with that. So what's the advantage of having friends during adversity, or times when times are tough, when things get bad? Now, thinking about all the things we talked about a friend so far. Robert, go ahead.
About 2016, a good friend of mine, his mother passed away out of nowhere, basically in the middle of the night. I got a phone call about it, and I drove from Kentucky to Atlanta. A friend drove from Paris, Tennessee to Atlanta. A friend drove from Apopka, Florida to Atlanta. And we just sat with our friend, and it didn't seem like we were doing enough, but in the end, that brought us all closer together to a point where, when I was going through the hardest point in my life at the beginning of 2020, that friend who lost his mother, he called me, he said, "Hey, do you want me to come up?" I said, "No, there's nothing you can do." And then he just showed up at work before I got off at 5, and he just spent the weekend with me. It goes to that point of, when you have these friends that are close, they're a balm. They can do something for you that no one really else can, because of the way they know you and the way that they love you. There's really no other love or thing like that.
I love the word that you used. There's a phrase, the balm of Gilead, and that idea of the soothing ointment. I think of burn victims, for instance, where the extreme pain that they go through with their, and this balm or this ointment that goes on to relieve that pain is the idea that we're talking about here. And these are friends are those that you've developed this relationship over a period of time, a thoughtful relationship, a relationship that you have chosen. You've spent time together, maybe a lot of good time, maybe a lot of that time that you spent was great times, the smile-making times and everything. And then all of a sudden in life, along comes those times that we all either have or will experience. And it's who shows up in those times that, in your mind and my mind, define what friendship is. And you all are thinking of somebody right now. I know you are, because I'm thinking of somebody right now. And that's, you know what I mean now when we talk about this. So. All right, so the fifth advantage of friends is they sharpen the countenance. Countenance just means your mental state, your state of mind. They sharpen that. And Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the mental state, the countenance of his friend. And so we talked about adversity. How about the advantage of friends in prosperity? When can you really make progress on your goals in life? During times when you're just sucking air, you're just about ready to drown with life's troubles, and you're just barely able to keep your nose above the surface of those troubles, or when autopilot, 70 miles an hour down life's highway, things are going just what, I mean, that's when you can get things done, right? I mean, is during those times. Well, you have some choices during those times. You can kind of waste them, think, glad I don't have to worry about that, and just kind of put it on cruise control, and then somewhere down the road the tire blows. Or you can take advantage of those times and move forward on those things that are important in life. Get them done, get the studying done, get the extra work done that need to be before the rain starts again, all those things. How important are friends in times like that to help keep you on track? Have you ever gone nuts for a little while? All right, yeah. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. You just gone crazy for a little while. Things are going good. I'm invincible. No problem. And then all of a sudden, somebody in your life goes, whoa, whoa for a second. What? Look where you're going. Do you remember what we talked about? Are friends important to help guide you? Well, sure. Yeah, they are. I mean, as parents, we struggle with the idea of guidance for our children and stuff. And at times, we want to be best friends to our children. But a lot of times, the parent role in that is not that of the friend. The friend can get stuff done in this particular area that parents will never have the ability to do, and that's by design that way. So our friends, the friends that our children have, are they important? Parents, are they important to us? Yeah, I mean it's those relationships are what make the difference in a child's life. And so, I know Norm's got friends. We remember when they were this big, and he still sees them every Thursday night, on the computer. These are folks that mold your life and everything. So it is extremely important. So during prosperity, friends can be very valuable. All right. So what character traits could keep a person from rejoicing in the prosperity of a friend? Okay. So now this is the opposite side. You're now the friend, and your friend is going through a period of prosperity. Francis?
Find out if they're a true friend or not. If they're jealous of you and they're envious of you, then that I wouldn't count them as a true friend.
Yeah. See, times of prosperity have some value also for looking around and seeing who's around you and why are they around you. And then in times of trouble, check the crowd again. Crowd check. All right? In both of those circumstances, if it's the same person, you've got the kind of friend that the Bible's talking about. How about what impact could these traits have on a friendship? The ones that Francis is talking about. If you're envious during times of prosperity for your friends, if you're a little jealous, maybe it's not, what kind of impact could that have on this friendship? Yeah, there isn't one. That's exactly right. You ever had your kids say, "Oh, my friends, but yeah, I'm going to hang around with my friends," and the friends is kind of used like, I think their last name is just the difference between a friend that we're talking about, that we've been talking about, and that is very, very different. And these circumstances of adversity and prosperity are keys. We need to pay attention, folks. When we're in those different, we need to recognize in our lives when, in times of prosperity, what kinds of things we should be paying attention to, looking at. And same thing with adversity. There's benefits in both of those if we pay attention. And don't get them mixed up. If you get them mixed up, then you quickly crash into the wall. So you don't do that. All right, so let's go on to this the second part. What friends will do for you. They will rebuke you. Okay. Is that a good thing? The question here, why are the wounds of a friend better than the kisses of an enemy? What's a friend doing? Again, we talked about times of adversity. Or let's just say, again, times when you're just being dumb. You're doing silly, stupid things. And a friend calls you out on that. Does that hurt? Is that what you want to hear? When you're just tracking down the road, man, I'm doing great. Don't talk to me about, what are you talking about? Kim?
It may not be what you want to hear, but it's what you need to hear.
It's what you need to hear. It comes from a place of love. The important word, the agape that we're talking about there. And because the love is something that is done because it's what needs to be done. It's what's best for that person. Even though they don't know it and they don't want to hear it. a friend's going to become a pain at that point in their life. And the closer the friend, the better the friend, the more pain is going to be involved until you finally wake up and go, oh, yeah, oh, thanks. And then you're hugging and kissing and, and you're going through all that thing of, I'm glad you were here kind of thing. What friends will do for you? Well, they will show pity to you. So why is pity from a friend different? It is comforting, like Robert was talking about in times when things are going wrong. Where does the comfort come from somebody sitting down with you in times of challenge and heartache and just being there? Robert?
A stranger walks past you and says, I'm sorry for your loss. You might have known the one that you lost, and you appreciate that, but you have no connection to them. So it doesn't mean as much to you as when your friend comes to you and says, I'm sorry, and sits there with you, because they probably had a relationship with that person. So not only are you grieving, but they are grieving with you for their loss as well. And it goes back to a threefold cord isn't easily broken, and that sharing grief is important. I'm bad at it, but when we share our grief, it makes the burden easier to carry.
So the word empathy comes to mind. How do you develop empathy for somebody or towards somebody? Can you develop empathy towards a stranger? What would have to happen? You're saying, Okay.
Even if you don't have a relationship, you can still have empathy.
And the tie is the common experience, right? Is it important if that empathy is going to be impactful? What needs to happen? Are you going to be strangers with that person from that point on? If you have, how many have ever been in some kind of a club like the military, for instance, and you're someplace down the road or whatever, and all of a sudden somebody says, yeah, I served at Camp Lejeune for, between 1910 and here and and Brad's ears perk up. What was that? What was that? You're a Marine? That's the Army. That's for Norm. But all of a sudden there's this bond that's almost instantaneous because of a shared experience. Friendship is going beyond empathy. It's the development of those shared experiences and sharing of life that pulls that into that relationship that's called friendship. Just meeting a stranger and having something in common, you may have empathy for them, but they're not your friend at that point. It could become a friendship, though, because you have a basis for starting that. Todd?
The New American Standard renders that passage a little differently, where the second phrase is, so that he does not forsake the fear of the Almighty. It makes a little more sense to me that the idea here is a despairing person needs that kindness because they're just barely hanging on to everything, even their faith.
Yeah, and it's that string that's thrown out there, that life preserver, that last thing. It seems like the last hope that's there and available, but that's what makes it so uncommon and so very valuable. Then we have some other things that friends will do for you. They'll support you during adversity. They'll rejoice with you. They'll lay down their lives for you. Oh, they'll lay down their lives for you. This is where we started, isn't it? Well, we've been talking about sacrifice, willing sacrifice, reasonable, via reason sacrifice. But the idea that Jesus brought forth in John chapter 15, and in 1 John 3:16, by this we know love, because he laid down his life for us, and we also ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. So Jesus, again, setting the ultimate example for us and helping us to define in our own minds just what are the limits of friendship. Does a friendship have limits? Gil, go ahead.
I think you can have limits if it's a one-way relationship. If somebody's giving, and the other one's taking, and it's not reciprocated at some point, then that relationship starts to break down.
I'm glad you talked about that, the one-sidedness of it. We're going to talk about that a little bit more tonight. So thank you for the intro on that. But yeah, everything we've been talking about is two-sided right now. Two-sided coins. Coins without two sides are one-dimensional, I guess. They're not, and relationships that are one-sided are pretty one-dimensional too, and that's not a friendship, basically. Okay, so we've been talking about friends, and we've been talking about value. Let's just keep that in mind. Are friends valuable? Is there any value to friendship? So I don't know anything about the Bible, but we've been talking about friends for the first time here. And what's the Bible talks a lot about friends and relationships? Oh yeah, a lot of Bible examples about friends. Yes, because some basic institutions like the family, like friendship, these are basic to human design. And so they are very valuable. And so what kind of an impact do friends, as the kinds of friends we're talking about in the Bible, what kind of impact do they have on the quality of our life? We hinted at this a little bit earlier on the quality of our life. Life with friends. They just got to make it better, right? Yeah. Well, now some people would disagree with that. They would say, well, I don't like people prying into my life. It's prying. You're prying into my things. I like to be alone. We talked about the fool earlier in Proverbs, okay? Another definition of a fool would be somebody that comes along with that kind of a statement because they just don't understand the value of working together with another human being. And their life is just that much more shallow as a result of that. All right, so how do you get friends? Everybody wants, all the kids want to know this. This is a tough. This is tough. Be friendly. The old phrase to get a friend, be a friend, it's absolutely true. And again, it's because of the two-sidedness nature of the relationship. Being loyal, Proverbs 27:10. Do not forsake your own friend or your father's friend, or go to your brother's house in the day of calamity. Better is a neighbor nearby than a brother is far away. So loyalty is part of that picture. How you talk to each other, what could possibly that have to do with anything? He's my friend. I could tell him anything. I could call him anything, and he's still going to be my friend. How many of you would think that would be a good idea? No, it's not a good idea. So why do people do it? Why do people try to take advantage of their friends and say things about their friends? They're not really their friends. Exactly. Again, the idea of using words in a common kind of way as opposed to the way that the word deeply has a meaning. Love. I love pizza. I love going outside during the summertime. I love to drive my car. I love my wife. Those are all the same value, right? No, they're not. And Phyllis is homesick this morning, so I can say that while she knows the difference in in that. And wives, you know the difference too, don't you? Yeah, in those words. So, how do you get friends? These are there are many other things associated with that. Things that destroy friendship. How can money destroy a friendship? Is it money that's destroying the friendship? How can money impact anything? That just pile of money just steps in there and okay, it's what you're doing with the money, right? That makes the difference there. Now, in particular, this one is talking about a particular way that the money is used. Norm, go ahead.
Priority. And once you let the inanimate thing, such as money, take priority, it ruins and destroys just about everything.
And this particular one, the proverb associated with this is associated with the idea of lending money. Is there any danger involved in lending money or asking to be lent money between friends? Oh yeah, there's some. There are minefields all over the place laid out in that kind of a thing. It's difficult. It's at times working with a friend if there's a boss, employee relationship, business associates, customers, all of those things.
Or it becomes a slave to the lender.
Yes, it does. A Bible verse right there. Exactly. Bible principle overshadows the reason for why this isn't a good idea. So it can be a problem. So if it interjects itself into your life, then the caution flags should go out for all of us. How about whispering and gossip? That's a pretty easy one, right? You do this, you don't have a friend. And if you had a friend that you called a friend, you're not going to have them for long. It's going to go pretty quick. And I think we can pretty much understand why this is true, right? So we won't go over that particular one. But it'll destroy fast a relationship that you have. Disloyalty. Why is loyalty so important in a friendship? Even my own familiar friend in whom I have trusted, who ate my bread, has lifted up his heel against me. Can you hear in David's voice the tragedy of that, the disappointment in that, the horror in that? Anybody else but them. Paul, in his almost tear-soaked manuscript, talking about Diotrephes, Demas, people who have become disloyal and that trust is broken. Yeah, that's a killer. And negligence, as in any relationship, huge impact. Just the garden of your life left to its own devices. What happens to it? The weeds take over. And there's no amount of weed pulling that's going to be able to save the crop. It's just not going to work. So then let's just spend in passing this very famous relationship between Jonathan and David. And some of the characteristics are so important with this. Characteristics that they both had. Their souls were knit together, it's talked about in 1 Samuel 18:1. They spent time with each other, which is one of the reasons they developed such a close relationship. They learned to love each other. Love, agape, the sacrificial love, giving of themselves for each other. And then individually, the evidence that we have of Jonathan's feelings towards David in that relationship, we're seen in Jonathan constantly going out and protecting David. And of course, Jonathan's loyalty towards David, even at the expense of his own, the possibility that David, the king, as opposed to Jonathan, the king, down the road. I mean, that's huge. And it says a lot about Jonathan's side of the relationship. And then, of course, David's side of the relationship. We have what he said it seems like as you're reading the story that it's almost a one-sided relationship. If we're not given that information at the beginning of 1 Samuel 18 about their reaction towards each other, we'd kind of miss out on that because we see a lot of Jonathan's feelings and emotions and the things that he's doing. But at the end, David and his strong emotions come out over the loss of his friend. And of course, the evidence of all of that was lies in the idea that he took care of Jonathan's offspring after Jonathan had passed away. So just a couple of general questions about friendship as we close. Just some things to think about. In the view of what the Bible says about friendship, why would a faithful Christian generally find his best friends to be other faithful Christians? With all the things we've talked about what it means to be a friend and friendship, why would this be a true statement? Okay, I got the hands coming. All right. So let's go, Jeff. That was a hand, right? Go ahead.
Shared goals and interests.
Shared goals and interests. One significant goal would be what? Go to heaven. Yeah. That's like as far a goal as is there. Ken?
Yeah, I was going to say you have things in common, that you don't have in common with people of the world,
Right.
That idea of faithful are the wounds of a friend. If you really love that person, you're going to tell them what they need to do to be saved. And if they're not interested in that kind of a message, they're not going to stick around. So if you find yourself to be close, but only because you don't talk about God's word, then that's not true friendship.
Yeah, exactly. So the most important things in life are what we're talking about there. And then finally, I want you to think about what character traits would hinder one from having close friends. And this is a self-examination part. Basically, just think about that. Do a little inventory. Okay? And think about that, because friendship is the most important gift that God has given us in the way of how should we approach life, what makes life special. Thank you very much for your time.